So, imagine you're sitting across from your biggest client. You're looking them right in the eye, and you have to tell them that the critical switchgear for their multi-million-dollar project won't arrive for 80 weeks.
Oh, man.
Right, like a year and a half, just to get the electrical backbone of the building delivered to the site.
And then, imagine a competitor walking into that exact same room the very next day and guaranteeing that exact same equipment in 6 months.
Wow. Just because of a federal loophole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simply because the federal government essentially gave them a VIP pass to just, skip the entire factory line.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, today is April 28th, 2026, and that scenario, it's not hypothetical anymore. I mean, we are looking at a construction market where gravity just feels optional right now.
Yeah, timelines are completely distorted.
Totally. Massive top-down mandates are just violently colliding with these global mega project stalls. So welcome to Scaling Legends.
Glad to be here.
The mission for this deep dive is to really unpack exactly how these macro policy shifts, these aggressive enforcement crackdowns, and structural market realignments directly impact your bottom line as a contractor.
All right.
And more importantly, we want to map out exactly where you need to pivot your pipeline next just to stay solvent.
Because the traditional backlog that, you've relied on for the last decade, it's transforming overnight.
Yeah.
The gap between the contractors who understand these new levers of power and the ones who are still bidding like it's 2023, it's widening at a really alarming rate.
It's terrifying,
Yeah.
honestly. So let's start with those levers of power.
Yeah.
Specifically the ones that are totally upending the material supply chain right now.
Okay, yeah. Let's get into it.
So the Trump administration just invoked the Defense Production Act, the DPA, specifically to clear out these severe bottlenecks in grid equipment and energy projects.
Right.
And we hear supply chain issues like all the time.
Yeah.
Right. But the pain points in electrical infrastructure have become, truly existential.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about large transformers, high voltage equipment, and GIS switchgear.
Yeah, the GIS stuff.
Right. So GIS, or gas insulated switchgear, it's basically the perfect example of why this bottleneck is so intractable.
Because it's not just a standard box, right?
Exactly. These aren't standard metal boxes you just stamp out on some assembly line. GIS units use sulfur hexafluoride gas to insulate the electrical components.
Okay.
And that's what allows them to be incredibly compact, which is perfect for, tight urban footprints or really dense data centers.
Right, but building them is a nightmare.
Yeah, manufacturing them requires this microscopic precision just to prevent gas leaks. Plus, you need highly specialized labor.
Not to mention the materials.
Right. Add in the severe global shortage of grain-oriented electrical steel for the transformer cores, and the literal months of manual labor just to wind the copper coils, and, you start to understand why lead times stretched out to that agonizing 80-week mark.
Which is insane. You just cannot schedule a profitable project around an 18-month black hole.
Yeah, you really can't.
So the federal government steps in with the DPA. But mechanically speaking, how does that actually force a private factory to speed up? Like, do federal agents just show up on the factory floor with clipboards or something?
Well, no. The enforcement is purely administrative, but, it carries the full weight of federal law.
Okay.
So under the DPA, the government assigns priority ratings to specific contracts. You'll typically see a DO rating, which signifies a critical national defense or energy priority, or a DX rating.
And DX is the highest.
Exactly. DX is the absolute highest national priority. So if a manufacturer receives a DO-rated order for a transformer, they are legally mandated to move that order ahead of literally any unrated commercial, municipal, or state order in their queue.
Wow. So if I'm building a commercial high-rise and I ordered my switchgear like 40 weeks ago,
Yep.
and a federal DPA order comes in today,
Your order just got pushed backward on the assembly line to make room.
oh man.
Yeah, and ignoring a DPA rating carries severe criminal and financial penalties for the manufacturer, so they comply.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's almost like federal energy projects just got TSA pre-check at the factory, while everyone else is stuck in an 80-week security line having to take off their shoes.
That's a really good way to put it.
But wait, there's a massive contradiction here,
Yeah.
right? We are accelerating the physical materials for federal projects by commandeering private assembly lines.
Yes.
But simultaneously, the labor required to install those materials is getting intensely restricted.
Right, the PLA mandate.
Exactly. A federal court just upheld the Biden-era project labor agreement mandate on federal construction projects over $35 million.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
And what's wild is, according to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, there are 14 federal energy projects flagged right now for DPA acceleration. But sitting right alongside them are a massive 280 active federal projects sitting above that $35 million PLA threshold.
The duality of it all is staggering. I mean, on one hand, winning a large federal energy contract is basically a golden ticket to bypass the worst supply chain nightmare in a generation. But on the other hand, a PLA fundamentally alters how a non-union contractor operates.
Break that down for us. What does it actually mean on the ground?
Well, a project labor agreement is a pre-hire collective bargaining agreement. It establishes the specific terms of employment for that single project.
Okay.
So for a non-union shop, this usually means you must hire a significant portion of your workforce through local union halls, you have to adhere to complex union work rules, and honestly navigate a massive bureaucratic maze.
So let me get this straight. If I run a heavy civil firm and I'm strictly non-union, I can't just bring my regular trusted crews to this $40 million federal job.
Not entirely, no. You'll likely have to pull from the hall.
And I'm potentially paying into union pension plans and health funds for workers who will only be on my payroll for, 12 months? They'll never actually vest in those benefits.
Exactly.
All while simultaneously funding my own company's 401k and health plans. I mean, I'm double paying benefits.
That double payment scenario is exactly the margin killer that non-union contractors fear the most right now. You need an incredibly sophisticated estimating team to price that administrative burden into your bid without, making your final number uncompetitive.
Right, it's a tightrope.
It really is. It requires a dual strategy. You need the agility to leverage DPA accelerated procurement, but heavily paired with the administrative rigor to actually survive the PLA compliance.
Man, which brings us to the reality on the actual job site. Because it's not just federal labor rules dictating terms from the top down. The available pool of workers is getting squeezed aggressively from the bottom up.
Oh, severely.
Let's look at the intense enforcement pressure hitting the Midwest right now. Chicago is experiencing this wave of highly disruptive immigration raids that are just completely upending active construction sites.
Yeah, it's a very tense situation.
But my question is why now? I mean, if the industry is facing a historic, universally acknowledged worker shortage, and the AGC just reported that March construction costs climbed again, driven by diesel and metal spikes, doesn't launching intense immigration enforcement just pour gasoline on the fire of project delays?
Well, whether the timing seems counterintuitive to the market demands or not, the systemic risk to the contractor is identical.
Okay.
We are essentially facing an immigrant worker cliff. The domestic workforce is aging out rapidly, as we know, and the historical pipeline of immigrant labor is now subject to severe interruption.
Right, because of these raids.
Exactly. And when an immigration raid hits a job site in Chicago, the impact isn't just limited to the workers who are detained. The chilling effect is immediate.
I can imagine. Everyone gets spooked.
Right. Word spreads on WhatsApp groups before the authorities even leave the premises. Yeah. Entire sites empty out within 20 minutes.
Wow. 20 minutes.
Yeah. Subcontractors will just ghost the project for days. And the thing is, even perfectly legal, documented workers will stay home simply to avoid the intense scrutiny and the hassle of a lockdown site.
That's wild. So a single event can essentially paralyze a multi-million-dollar schedule for weeks while you attempt to remobilize. And the liability isn't strictly confined to immigration either. There's a parallel crackdown happening right now on financial compliance.
Oh, the wage theft audits.
Yes. State officials in the Twin Cities just recovered $1.28 million in stolen wages for construction workers.
And that wage theft enforcement in the Twin Cities, that is a glaring signal for every contractor listening to this deep dive, regardless of your geographic region.
Why is that?
Because auditors are no longer just looking for unpaid overtime. They are aggressively targeting worker misclassification.
Oh, like 1099s.
Right. The practice of a subcontractor treating full-time crew members as independent 1099 contractors to avoid payroll taxes and workers' comp premiums. And the scariest part, the regulatory shield that usually protects general contractors is dissolving.
That's up the chain liability, right?
Exactly.
So if my drywall sub misclassifies his tapers up in the Twin Cities, the state isn't just fining the drywall company. They're coming after me as the GC.
Yes.
They could potentially put a lien on an entire project to recover those wages.
That's the reality. You are increasingly viewed as a joint employer in the eyes of state labor boards.
Wow.
So the tactical takeaway here is straightforward. You have to assume an auditor is going to walk into your job trailer tomorrow morning.
Just be ready for it.
Yeah. You need to aggressively audit your I-9 compliance, and you must mandate transparent payroll reporting from your entire subcontractor pool before a targeted enforcement action freezes your site.
So traditional labor is squeezed, materials are incredibly expensive, and federal compliance is basically a minefield. So where is the safe harbor? I mean, if the traditional bread and butter pipeline is compromised, where do contractors actually pivot to find sustainable growth?
Well, the capital hasn't evaporated, right? It has simply relocated.
Okay.
The market outlook for 2026 is incredibly uneven. Traditional sectors like residential, multifamily, and especially commercial office space, they are essentially flat to down. High interest rates and that permanent cultural shift toward remote work have effectively capped commercial office development. If your firm's entire backlog consists of local mid-rise office buildings, your runway is getting dangerously short.
Yeah, and actually Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report totally confirms this deep divide in the pipeline. It clearly illustrates why geographic and sector pivots are essential right now.
Definitely.
According to them, data centers, advanced manufacturing, and defense infrastructure are single-handedly driving the growth column in 2026.
Yeah, data centers are exploding. It's due to the insatiable power and processing demands of artificial intelligence.
Look, all AI now.
It is. But transitioning from commercial offices to data centers, it isn't just a matter of swapping out architectural plans.
Right.
A data center is fundamentally heavy infrastructure. You are dealing with structural floor loading requirements that absolutely dwarf a standard office, incredibly dense power redundancy systems,
Right.
and massive liquid-to-chip cooling systems that require megawatts of dedicated energy.
So it's basically a high-security, sub-zero power plant that just happens to hold computer servers.
It's exactly what it is.
It's a completely different discipline of construction. But the smart money is obviously making that jump, and you look at the executive movements telegraphing this shift. Zachary Construction just brought in a new president with a heavy, really deliberate focus on water projects.
And Zachary's pivot is highly strategic.
Yeah.
They are positioning themselves ahead of the massive wave of federal funding aimed at replacing century-old, failing municipal water infrastructure.
That makes total sense.
And then look at Skanska. They are maintaining a remarkably robust healthcare backlog. They're essentially recession-proofing their portfolio by riding the demographic wave of an aging population.
Smart.
Yeah, and we are seeing leadership like Rick Andrich, a Pewaukee contractor who was recently named AGC president, really guiding the industry through this exact transition.
I look at it kind of like tectonic plates. Well, the industry isn't shrinking, right? It's shifting geographically and sector by sector. The commercial office space plate is subducting. It's sinking.
Right.
But the data center, advanced manufacturing, and water infrastructure plates are rising to form these massive new mountains. You have to pack up your estimating teams and physically move to higher ground.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
We are seeing established New England contractors actively abandoning their home regions to chase advanced manufacturing plants down south or data centers out west.
Because mobilizing a management team and a core crew across the country is now economically more viable than sitting in your home market starving while you wait for an office tower to get funded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, this necessity to pivot and manage massive capital risk, it isn't just a domestic phenomenon.
Not at all.
If we look overseas, we are seeing what happens when seemingly unlimited capital violently collides with logistical reality.
Oh, you're talking about the Middle East.
Yeah, the biggest shockwave in global construction right now is coming out of Saudi Arabia. Their $500 billion NEO mega project is undergoing a massive, very public rethink.
It's a huge deal.
Projects nested within NEOM like The Line, which was originally pitched as a 170-kilometer linear city, the Trojena Ski Resort, and the Sinaloa Island development, they're all facing severe scope reductions.
Yeah.
Significant schedule pushouts, and direct contractor terminations. And a lot of U.S. and European firms looked at the Gulf as a blank check for the next decade.
Well, tactically speaking, a blank check means nothing if the sovereign wealth fund backing it decides to change the budget.
Right.
The physical constraints of building a linear city in the desert, combined with shifting local economic priorities, forced a major reality check.
And had to happen eventually.
So for any contractor with exposure to NEOM or similar mega developments, this requires an immediate tactical response regarding your contracts, specifically your force majeure positioning.
Now, every seasoned contractor knows the basic definition of force majeure. right? And an unforeseeable circumstance that prevents someone from fulfilling a contract.
Sure.
But how do you actually pull that ripcord against a sovereign wealth fund without getting tied up in international arbitration for the next 10 years?
You have to focus on the strict mechanics of your stop work clauses and your payment milestones for procured materials.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so if you have custom structural steel sitting on a cargo ship in the Red Sea right now, and the client suddenly halves the scope of the project, your force majeure, or termination for convenience clauses, must explicitly dictate how you secure payment for the materials already in transit.
And the work already done.
Exactly, the foundation already in the sand. You must legally pause work and secure the site before the entire master plan gets scrapped and the funding gets totally frozen.
Even a $500 billion budget eventually bows to gravity.
It really does.
But, while the Middle East is hitting a wall of logistical scaling, the UK is pushing a totally different structural paradigm. Their modular construction market is booming. It's projected to hit $19.1 billion by 2033.
Yeah, the UK modular boom is largely driven by their Future Home Standard. It mandates highly energy-efficient, low-carbon housing.
Makes sense.
And modular construction moves the labor off the chaotic job site and into a climate-controlled factory. This drastically reduces waste and solves for their own severe trade shortages.
Right.
But shifting to modular means the global supply chain has to physically relocate to support it.
And we're seeing exactly that happen, right? MyPi is breaking ground on a massive new construction chemical plant in Truganina, Victoria, over in Australia.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
Because when you shift from traditional pours to advanced modular assembly, your material needs change entirely.
Exactly. Traditional mortar and standard adhesives, they do not work in modular construction.
They just break apart.
Right. When you build a fully finished volumetric room in a factory, and then you transport it down a highway at 60 miles an hour, you need highly specialized dynamic adhesives and sealants.
Right.
They have to withstand massive transport stress and shear forces without cracking. So by building a chemical plant locally in Australia, MAPE is ensuring that the specialized adhesives required for advanced manufacturing are insulated from the exact international shipping bottlenecks we discussed earlier with those electrical transformers.
Right. The localization of the supply chain is critical.
Absolutely.
But, while the UK relies on modular factories to solve the labor shortage, they're also testing the extreme sci-fi edge of on-site technology.
The robots.
Yes. A major update out of UK Construction Week revealed that humanoid robots are currently being trialed on active job sites.
And the critical update here isn't just that a trial is happening, it's that the hardware actually works.
Really? Like, practically?
Right, yes. These humanoid units can successfully navigate the unpredictable, uneven terrain of an active site. They can conduct laser scanning, carry drywall, and handle all the repetitive, joint-destroying lifting tasks that wear out human workers.
That's amazing.
The bottleneck preventing mass deployment isn't the robotics at all. It is the regulatory framework.
Wait, really? You have a machine that can carry drywall, and red tape is keeping it in the storage container.
Yep. Current safety regulations, basically the UK equivalent of OSHA, and the surrounding insurance liability frameworks are written exclusively for human-operated machinery, like forklifts and cranes.
Okay.
They simply haven't conceived of a 200-pound autonomous machine working side by side with a human carpenter on a scaffold.
Oh, I see.
If an autonomous robot drops a steel beam, who holds the liability? Is it the general contractor?
Right.
The software developer who coded the AI?
Right.
The manufacturer of the robot's hardware? Until the insurance and safety bureaucracies establish those boundaries, the technology just remains sidelined.
Wow. Which brings us completely full circle. The solutions exist, but the frameworks have to catch up.
Very well said.
So let's distill all of these moving parts into absolute actionable takeaways for the listener to execute on this week. Number 1, if you operate in the federal space, you must prioritize DPA Federal Energy Task Orders. Look aggressively for those DO and DX ratings. They're your only fast track through the crippling supply chain bottlenecks for heavy equipment.
And number 2, audit your PLA compliance rigorously on any federal pursuit over $35 million. You have to calculate the administrative burden of union hiring halls and dual benefit payments before you lock in your bid price.
Right.
Number 3, if your firm has a footprint in the Gulf, immediately assess your NEOM exposure, review your stop work and force majeure clauses, and secure your collection status for procured materials.
Definitely. Number 4, Update your I-9 compliance and conduct internal wage audits immediately, especially if you have operations anywhere near Chicago or the Twin Cities. Do not wait for an auditor to knock on your trailer door. Demand payroll transparency from your subcontractors today to shield yourself from up-the-chain liability.
So important.
And finally, pivot your bid mix. Stop fighting for scraps on the subducting plate of commercial office space and move your estimating resources toward the mountains. Data centers, advanced manufacturing, and municipal water infrastructure.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder that builds on everything we've analyzed today.
Let's hear it.
We just established that bureaucratic friction and insurance liability are the only things keeping highly capable humanoid robots off job sites in the UK, right?
Right.
But here in the US, we have major markets like Chicago facing a crippling, heavily regulated labor squeeze compounded by intense immigration crackdowns.
The immigrant worker cliff.
Exactly. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: how long until heavily labor-starved, heavily regulated markets are forced to fast-track robotics, dismantling their own red tape, simply to keep the industry from collapsing under its own weight?
Wow.
At what point does the severe financial pain of the labor shortage finally override the bureaucratic fear of regulatory change?
That's a profound question.
Yeah.
I mean, when the gravity of labor shortage gets heavy enough, the whole system will just be forced to reorganize itself around a new reality. If you know a contractor who's dealing with shifting pipelines and federal compliance, send them this episode. It can help them pivot their bid mix before the market flattens. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. Visit smartbusinessautomator.com.